All right. The Average Gamer guys. Hello, Josh.
Hey Wes, how are you, mate?
Good, buddy. What's going on?
Just coming out here, do some reviews.
Yeah.
See what's going on.
Check out. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about Dying Light. So I guess what we're doing to sort of pretense this a little bit, what we're doing is kind of going back in time a little bit, because Dying Light came out in 2017, but we're kind of going back and looking at some prequels to games that have got some pretty awesome looking sequels coming up, effectively, aren't we? Having a look at a couple of things, like we've got the sequel to Dying Light's obviously coming out, I think early next year. What else have we got coming out that we've heard about that we're looking at again?
Diablo 4's on the agenda.
Yeah,
so go back, have a look at D3.
You've been playing Diablo 3 a lot, so you're going to go back, have a look at that. I've been spending a bit of time with Dying Light, and there's a bunch of other stuff that's coming out in the next kind of 6 to 12 months as well that we'll have a look at. And
Borderlands,
yes.
the old Borderlands.
Borderlands was another one that we've had a look at. And I guess we'll also go back and just find some old things that we may have forgotten about, that people may have missed, that might be little gems from the past.
They're cheapies. Cheapies on the PlayStation Store, and why not?
That go on special. Like, I think I picked up Dying Light for $20. No, that was a different one. I confused myself. I picked up what was the Lord of the Rings game called? Shadow of War for $20, which I'm starting to have a bit of a playthrough as well. But in saying that, Dying Light was, I think, only $30 or $40 when I did pick it up, now that I remember. Now, Dying Light I did play back in 2017, but for some reason I didn't get as into it back then, and I don't know why, because I am all over it now.
Maybe it's just something else at the time.
Maybe, and I'm sure that there's been updates. I know there's been expansions that have been added to it, so they may have made tweaks to the gameplay and the way things work that I don't know that they've made, that have just made the experience better for me. So I don't know if anyone else is out there that played it back in 2017 and didn't really get into it that much. Maybe if you go back and play it now, it might have changed, because I am absolutely loving it at the moment, and it's probably what I'm spending most of my time playing.
Yeah, wow.
At the moment, it's
tell me about it.
Fantastic. It's been great. So it's another sort of zombie survival type kind of game. The basic storyline is that it's a fictional city called Haran, that you, as your character, you work for a company or an organization called the GRE, which is the Global Relief Effort. So effectively, there's been a virus released in Haran, and it's basically being quarantined. It's a quarantine zone, so no one can really enter or leave. But obviously, as part of the organization that your character works for, you get airdropped in to basically try and work at finding information on what the virus, where it started, how it was released, try and find clues and other information that might lead to a cure, basically, and then preventing it from happening anywhere else. The storyline's actually really, really compelling. You're almost like a undercover agent, so to speak, because you're not, for whatever reason, you're not really divulging this information to people in the city. So there's a group of survivors that you're sort of getting in with and trying to gain their trust, and you do missions for them and work with them. And then there's another faction run by what's portrayed as an evil dictator that, they're sort of against in this town. So you've got to try and somehow you sort of infiltrate them a little bit as well, whilst continuing to report back to the GRE. And then, basically the GRE seem to have views and interests that begin to play a bit of conflict in what you're doing, because as your character, you're building relationships with certain people, and it's almost like a view of, well, if people die, it doesn't matter as long as it's for the greater good from this GRE point of view.
Right.
So the storyline is actually really compelling, and they've done it really, really well. The voice acting is fantastic. It doesn't come across as fake and cheesy. It actually does come across as pretty sincere. So it's a first person, well, you wouldn't call it a shooter whilst there are weapons. The bulk of what you're doing is melee weapons. So you're picking up drain pipes and wrenches and pretty much anything that you can use as a weapon. But a big part of the gameplay it's like parkour, basically, which is kind of cool. So what we're seeing basically now is opening scene, you airdrop in. This is all a cutscene. Basically, you get attacked by this this group in yellow, which is that other evil group that you sort of do at one point try and infiltrate and sort of work with a little bit.
They do look a little post-apocalyptical.
Yeah, they definitely do with what they've got, and you know, you're out in the street during the day, and the zombies just sort of milling around everywhere, and they're your sort of standard kind of zombie mainly for the bulk of them. That they're obviously brain dead. They don't move super quick. They try and kind of grab you, and they'll try and bite you. There are different types though. There'll be some huge giant heavies with these massive weapons that are slow to swing, but obviously they do a lot more damage and they take a lot more to kill. And then there are couple of different, you call them classes of zombies as well. There's some that are super quick that will run and chase you like crazy. And the sound effects and the soundtrack and everything on it is really cool too, because it does actually sort of get your heart rate up a little bit.
I remember games that terrified me playing years ago. Like I think it was Ravenhall in Half-Life 2, where that screaming thing came galloping at you. Terrified.
Yeah. And they've done it so well with the sound effects and everything. And there's a day to night cycle as well.
Okay.
So everything changes at night. There are these other type of zombie that come out from the darkness, and then they come out from these tunnels at night because they're affected by daylight and they can't be out in daylight. But they're super powerful, super quick. Basically, if they get hold of you, you're pretty much dead straight away. But you get increased experience points at night for being everything you do at night. The experience is multiplied because it's a lot more dangerous being out there. So if you go out and you make noise, you'll see on the map things get alerted, things start to chase you. But at night, I tell you, I sit in here, if I turn the lights off and do some stuff out there at night with the 3D headphones on, it's terrifying. Yeah. It is super scary, but it's really cool in that sense.
Can you sleep in the game to fast forward back to daytime?
Yep, you definitely can. So the safe houses, and generally you'll have one safe house that you start, which is in the big main tower, which we'll see a little bit of footage of walking around at the moment, which is the main sort of area of non-player characters and stuff like that you get missions off and things, but scattered throughout the map, so it's a big open world sandbox type map. But scattered throughout the map, there are other safe houses, but they start off as inactive safe houses, effectively. So they might have fencing around them, but one of the gates might be open. So what you've got to do is jump in there, shut the gate, kill or eliminate any of the zombies that are in there, and then find the power boxes to repair the power, turn the power back on, and then they become an active safe zone that you can jump into. And yes, there are beds so that you can go over to a bed and it'll just say sleep till nighttime or sleep till daytime.
Easy.
So you can just go straight through, because there are some missions that you have to do at night and at certain times.
Fast travel between them?
No.
Ooh.
Unless I'm missing something completely, but no, I've not seen a fast travel option at all, which is probably a good thing in a way, because with the progression system, as I said, there's a big element to it is the parkour. So you're running, you're climbing on just about anything, you're jumping and whatnot, but then there's also the fighting side of things, which is mainly with your melee weapons, but you do pick up later in the game, you can pick up handguns, rifles and stuff like that, but ammo becomes limited. It's not just an unlimited pool of ammo. So you do have to rely a lot on hand-to-hand combat. But to progress through those, you have to do them. So it's not just an experience pool of I'm just doing certain things and I'm leveling up and then I never ever fight, but because I've leveled up, I can now upgrade some of my fighting mechanics because I've got skill points, so to speak. If you want to upgrade your fighting and get new skills, you have to go and fight. And then you'll get your fighting skill points that level that up, and then you've got a skill tree of fighting mechanics and things like that you can unlock. The same with your parkour and your agility. You have to be running around, jumping and climbing over things, and you get little points every time you scale a wall or jump up something. You get a little.
The original Fable had something similar.
I never played that, so I'm not sure, but maybe.
If it pops up cheap, I'd recommend it. It's a good
Fable. Yeah, okay. I've heard about it. I've definitely heard it's got good reviews. But they go through a tutorial that shows you the mechanics of it. It's super easy to pick up as well. It's a little bit different in that it's not X is jump. It's the right bumper is jump.
Oh, it takes some getting used to.
It does take a little bit of getting used to, but it's actually pretty intuitive and much easier to work with once you get used to it. But you'll see I'm sort of running around. There's a bit of a tutorial obstacle course that you can see is happening here that gets you sort of a basic understanding of what you're doing through there. There isn't really too much of a fighting tutorial. That's kind of just you figure it out as you go. But
flailing your arms wildly and
kind of. But I mean, you'll sort of have you figure it out pretty quick as well. With it's kind of just a basic attack, and then you'll unlock as you go on further. You can unlock power attacks, and you can do a running drop kick or a slide kick to trip up.
That's pretty cool.
And stuff like that, which is kind of cool as well. So, yeah. So as I said, with the fighting, it doesn't take a huge amount of time to pick it up. There's not a huge amount of combos. It's not like we spoke about Mortal Kombat a couple of weeks ago. It's not like you need to remember down, left, up, X or anything like that to be able to do stuff. There's basically you'll
attack.
Yeah, I think it's pull the right trigger and you'll swing whatever the melee weapon that you've got is. You'll have a stamina bar.
Okay.
As well, so you can't just continue to just swing because you'll get tired. And the different weapons have different ratings. If it's a smaller, lighter weapon, takes less stamina. If it's a bigger, heavier weapon, it'll take more stamina per swing, but it'll do more damage. It's slower if you hit. And as you level up through that, then you get more stamina, you get more health as well. It's the same thing when you're sprinting. You've only got a certain amount of stamina and you will get tired. You'll hear yourself start to breathe heavy and you'll slow down and then your movements become slower. So you kind of want to avoid that. So there is those two. There's the agility and then there's the fighting mechanics, but then there is an overall experience pool as well, which is just your general survivor rank, they call it. So by doing missions and completing objectives, you get those points that then you can get upgrades to your stamina, things like that as well, just general sort of stuff. And then I have noticed, I can't remember whether this was in the first one or not, but I have noticed there is, it's like legendary ranks as well, which I haven't unlocked yet because I think you have to
max out your skill tree.
Yeah, so you got to max out one of the skill trees before you get access to that. So I have no idea what they are. So I'm not sure there. So there's a huge amount of other stuff there. So I think they've added a lot of sort of end game type stuff as part of these expansions, and apparently they've added a bit of a PvP element to it as well,
really?
Which I haven't seen yet or experienced. So I'm not sure what's involved yet, but I did read something about some kind of battle royale PvP, like 6 or 12 people in a map kind of thing. So whether that's kind of running around with a machete and hacking and slashing each other and all that, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure I'll get there with that eventually. Crafting is a big thing as well, so it's a bit of a looter in the sense that you can go into most buildings you can open the fridge and you might find a bottle of alcohol or household supplies, which might be sugar and all this sort of stuff, so you can use them, alcohol and bandages, to create med kits, and then there's heaps of different things and all these different upgrades to weapons. You'll find and unlock blueprints as you go as well for weapon upgrades, so you might be able to add nails into a baseball bat or a saw blade into something so that you can upgrade those as you go. But also one thing that's interesting as well is your weapons have almost like a health bar effectively, and as you use them they deteriorate, so then you've got to repair them because they get to a point where they'll become ineffective, but they've only got a certain amount of repairs in them.
You got to craft something.
So then you've got to, once it's gone, if you can't repair it anymore, you've got to ditch it, find something new to use.
Just hope you're not in the middle of combat when that happens.
Yeah, well, you can hold a fair few of them, and your D-pad acts as like you can have 4 equipped. So you just hit right on the D-pad, and it'll switch to the next one. Hit right again, it'll switch to the next one. So you can pick your 4 favourite weapons and have them ready to go all the time.
That's pretty cool.
Because you have that, and then you have your throwables as well, which are the main throwable that you use most of the time are firecrackers. So they act as like a distraction. So if you throw your firecrackers over in a direction, that'll drag all of the zombies to where that noise is coming from. So then you can jump down and quickly go and do what you've got to do and try and get out there or get through a door that might be surrounded by zombies. So there's those. You can craft Molotov cocktails.
Pipe bombs, probably.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And because there is, when you get to certain parts with the other rival faction that's in the town, in the city of Haran, it's not just you're actually fighting other people. Then it's not just fighting zombies all the time. So then you'll have to dodge them because they'll block your melee attack, and then you've got to dodge out of the way because they'll do different things. So that adds another element to the combat.
Defend button for it,
you can craft a shield at one point. So I've just recently got the shield, which I can then use to block, which is kind of cool. But then other than that, I think it's with the left bumper and a direction maybe, you dodge. So you can jump backwards real quick or dodge to the left and the right. So it's sort of about, you've definitely got to watch and gauge and time what you're doing. And then you get to a level where there is gunfights as well. So it won't just always be melee combat. So there's no real cover system with the gunfight or anything like that. You sort of hide, but you can't kind of peek around corners or anything. Being a first person game, you can't really peek around corners or anything like that. It's definitely, like, as I said, that I'm super into it. I'm super into the storyline now. It's really, really sad. There was one part, without giving too many spoilers away, there's obviously death in this game, but there's, shock, horror. But you do actually, you do sort of, they've done a really good job that you do build a little bit of a connection with some of these characters. And then all of a sudden you go at one point, it's a bit of a shock that, oh, holy shit, this guy's now a zombie, I've got to kill him. Because there's no other way to save him. He's been bitten and he's turned. And then you're like, oh, and then you got to go back and tell the rest of the people, that includes his sister and all this kind of stuff, that are main characters in it. So it's pretty cool in that sense. As I said, it was super easy to sort of pick up. I would 100% recommend it to just about anyone that sort of enjoys shooters and things like that, because I think they've done a really, really good job of it. And there's a lot of, as I said, expansion stuff that has been added that I haven't even tried yet, because I'm not there, because I'm still working my way through the storyline.
So it's a large game then.
Yeah, definitely. I reckon I've probably put 30 or 40 hours into it.
That's
now,
a solid campaign.
And I think looking at it through the campaign main storyline missions, I think I'm about 25-30% through the storyline missions. Because I have been doing, there's a lot of side missions and side quests that you find along the way, and they don't feel repetitive or meaningless either. Yeah. They are kind of cool. And it might, some things, like as an example on one of the side missions, because obviously you don't have to do them, but a reason to do them and benefit them is because you will unlock new things. Like there was these two crazy Russian brothers that were actually pretty funny listening to the conversations they had, but I had to go and find these different types of supplies for them, and then I went back to them with that, gave them all these supplies, and then I had to go and find a truck battery, and then they used the truck battery casing to create this new bomb that they needed to clear out an area, so that once they've done that, I had to go away and do other stuff for a while, and then they got in contact with me on the radio. This is just a side mission. And then they got in contact with me over a radio and said, hey, come back, it's ready. So then you go back and you grab it off them, and then you've got to take it into a tunnel to test it. And then you do that and you test it. Then you go back and see them, and they said it worked. And then they've basically turned around and said, oh, we've reworked it, so now you can create a smaller version of it, but in cans. So then you get the blueprint for this new bomb that you can then craft and use, which is gives it meaning for doing the side missions. But some games
rewarded for your work.
And you know how some games have side missions just seem like the same thing.
Collect this
every single time, whereas there's a lot of variety in the side missions, which are really, really cool. And you do go through in the storyline, and you sort of have to try and work with some doctors and stuff like that you find to try and create a cure. But then there's so many different angles of conflict. There's conflict coming from the GRE over the radio, where things change from that point of view, and that creates a lot of friction between your character and those people that you work for, basically. And then there's things happening in the group of survivors with people turning and people wanting to go somewhere else, and there being conflict inside that. But then you get attacked by the other rival gang that come out of nowhere and steal stuff and things like that as well. So there's all these different angles of things happening, which keeps it interesting all the way through, which is cool. But as I said, I'm absolutely loving it. So to give it the ratings, I guess, is there anything else that you're curious about?
Is it all story? Have you got other modes within the game. So you mentioned that there was some PvP on the horizon. Is there a horde mode, or is it just a really story-driven game and that's all there is?
The bulk of it is definitely story-driven, but there's what I've seen as far as extra content goes is there's a Be the Zombie mode as well, which is partly like a PvP part of it, where you can go in and one person becomes a zombie that then has to hunt down the other zombie, the normal player characters in the game. So this is the multiplayer version of it, which is kind of cool. So that then has different mechanics, and then I think obviously one that you have to do when you're a person in that mode and you're not the zombie is, yes, you've got to survive, but you have these nests that you need to go and try and destroy.
Okay.
Whilst you're being hunted by this zombie, and there's like high-end loot rewards that come with destroying these nests.
Okay.
But it becomes pretty difficult. Like, I haven't played it a huge amount. I have played it just a little bit. There is
extra.
There's a lot more. There's one thing I noticed that there's I think it is almost like a horde type mode. I haven't tried it yet, but there's one part where you can go to the stadium. There's there, and then I think that becomes like a survival horde mode, which was an expansion at one point. So I haven't tried that yet, but that's there, which is like an end game replayable thing. There's Contaminated Zones as well that you can get into, which I think have much higher concentrations of different types of zombies, and you've got to try and clear them out, I believe, as well. I've stumbled across doors into those through it just randomly throughout the map. And then one thing I did go and look at and tried really quickly at one point was there's a prison offshore somewhere where you have to go to a boat and then you can travel to this prison, which is apparently fairly untouched or unraided and looted. So apparently it's either a prison or a police station.
Yep.
But same sort of thing, there's like an armory there that will be obviously very stocked with weapons. So I've done that real quickly and then got off, had to walk up some stairs and sort of through a car park. But this was at the stage where I didn't have any guns. I only had melee weapons at the point, but there were other human, not real people. These were NPCs, but human NPCs that all had assault rifles.
Yeah, that makes it very difficult.
So I didn't get anywhere with that, so I had to leave, and I'll have to go back and try that again at another time. But that's another thing that's been added. And there also is like the co-op mode just generally through the games, which there's a setting that you can change on this. But as I've been running through the story missions and the side missions, just randomly another online player character will just pop up in my map.
That's cool.
And then you can jump in, you can go and do the missions together, which is kind of cool. You can, if they've got mic, you can talk to them, and you go back and forth, and that makes it obviously a little bit easier with certain things. When you've got more people doing it, you can heal each other and help out a little bit in that sense. Where it can sometimes be a little bit annoying is that if on a mission you need, say for example, you have to go into a building, and it might not just be it actually needs a reload in the building. You'll get to the door and it'll say waiting for all players.
Yeah.
So if someone jumps into your map and then all of a sudden they get distracted and they decide to just go off somewhere else and fight some zombies and do some killing, and you're trying to do your story missions, that becomes a little bit annoying. But really simply, you can just hit start, hit drop out of session, and it doesn't move you anywhere. It doesn't reload you back to a safe zone. It will just drop you out of that game. They will disappear. You'll be in your normal game. Then you can go straight through the door.
Okay, that's awesome.
So it's a really simple. They've designed it really well that you can avoid that if people are being idiots and stuffing around with that, which is kind of cool. But you can just turn that feature off completely so that no one will drop in on your sessions at all. It's up to you. But then you can jump in on other people's as well.
Sweet.
So there's still a hell of a lot more to explore. I still want to get through the storyline first and sort of unlock my skill trees and stuff like that before I go and try and do that end game expansion content, because I'm going to assume it's going to be pretty hard.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be really simple.
Considering this is the second time you've attempted this game and you're just getting into it now.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know why I didn't get into it back in 2017, but for some reason it kind of just didn't grab me, and I guess I maybe got distracted by some other things that came out. I don't know, maybe the Division 1 came out, and no, that was earlier than that, wasn't it? Division 1 was
2 years.
2015 or 16, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what grabbed me and took me away from it, but this is actually, I've been playing Division 2 less now that I've had this. So waiting for more Division 2 content to come out, which isn't far away. But to rate this, learning curve on this, as I said, you have a little bit of a tutorial on the parkour mechanics, but then you're pretty much into it. It takes, the buttons are a little bit different, but feel actually pretty intuitive once you've wrapped your head around how the jump and climbing works and all that kind of stuff. So for learning curve, I gave it 9 out of 10.
Yeah, wow.
As I said, I've been absolutely loving it. So it's going to be rated pretty high. What was it? Time to start. So there was a bit of a cutscene at the start, but it wasn't extensive. It definitely wasn't Mortal Kombat 11 cutscene extensive with that at all. You get a bit of it gives you a good background. It sort of kicks the story off when you're in there, but then you're pretty much straight into it. And once you've done that to start with, load times are actually really quick, and it's pretty easy to get back in and play from where you left off, which was great. So time to start's 9 out of 10. Session time, as I said, there's so much variety now in this, whether it's quickly jumping in and running a couple of side missions, or doing a bit more in depth and doing some storyline missions, or having a look at that prison, or maybe it's a contaminated zone, or it's be the zombie sort of stuff. You can jump in, you can play for half an hour and be like, yeah, that was cool, I got a bit done, sweet, I'll duck off now. Or have an hour session, or same thing, you can sit down and get lost for a couple of hours in it, which is really, really cool. So there's good variety in that sense. So for session time, I gave it a 10.
Yes, sweet.
So super easy, quick to jump in, and away you go. Gameplay for me, I gave it a 9. Because it is, like I said, it's simple, it's easy to get a hang of, it's not complicated, but it feels intuitive and it feels natural once you've got the hang of it. The running and climbing things is really smooth. It's not clunky. You're not getting caught on graphics or, stuck on a brick on the floor and things like that, like you get in some of these massive open world games that are so detailed. So gameplay was a 9 out of 10, and how much replayability, so how much do I want to come back and play it again? Like I said, I'm playing this more than anything else at the moment. This is really dragging me back and caught me, and I want to go back and continue to do more. Like I said, the storyline's really compelling, so it's like, shit, I want to know what happens next. I'm not sure. I haven't gotten to any stages or parts where I've had choices to make that affect the storyline, so I think it's a pretty linear storyline that you do the missions and this is how the storyline plays out. I don't think, I may be wrong, but there might be a point in time where I have to make a decision between, I guess there's those 3 factions. There's the GRE, there's those survivors that you start with, and then there's who are portrayed as the bad guys, which is, I don't know if there's going to be a choice to make at some point, maybe, but I haven't come across it yet. But for replayability, I gave it a 10 because I really want to come back and continue to play it. So overall, that works out as a 9 out of 10 for me for Dying Light, the original.
That's a strong rating.
It's my highest score so far since we've been doing our little waffling on project and talking about games. So it's needless to say, pretty excited for the second one.
Yeah. Have we got a date for that yet?
I think, I may be wrong, but I think it's early 2020.
Yeah, nice.
I don't think it's anytime super soon, but with the way things are going, that'll be here before we know it anyway. So, am very, very much looking forward to that. So I would highly recommend, if anyone's sort of a little bit looking for something to play, or they're a little bit stale and maybe they've seen this before but didn't really jump on it, I'd highly recommend jumping on this and having a play of it, because I have absolutely loved it.